The crowd gasped as Adana ripped the dark glasses from Chukwudi's face, revealing eyes that could see perfectly. "You liar," she screamed, her voice echoing through the packed wedding hall. "You've been pretending to be blind this whole time." Chukwudi stood frozen at the altar, exposed before 300 guests. His expensive suit, the crystal chandeliers, the imported flowers, everything suddenly made terrible sense. The man everyone had pitied, the man no woman wanted to marry, had been watching them all along. "I can explain," he stammered, but the damage was done. His own mother collapsed in her seat. His cousins who had mocked him for years stood with their mouths hanging open. And there, in the back row, sat 5 different women who had rejected his marriage proposals, their faces twisted with shock and regret. But how did it come to this? How did a wedding day turn into the biggest scandal Lagos had seen in years? To understand, we must go back 6 months earlier, to a small room in Surulere where our story truly begins. Chukwudi Okonkwo lived in a modest 2-bedroom flat that smelled of old books and loneliness. At 32 years old, he moved through his home with the careful steps of a man who couldn't see, tapping his white cane against the walls, feeling for doorways with outstretched hands. "Brother Chukwu, your breakfast is ready," called Ngozi, his housemaid of 3 years. She was a slim, dark-skinned woman of 26 with kind eyes and a gentle voice that seemed to calm the air around her. Chukwudi made his way to the dining table, his fingers trailing along the wall. Ngozi watched him with the patience of someone who had done this 1,000 times before. She guided his hand to the plate, described where each item of food was positioned like a clock, and poured his tea with steady hands. "Thank you, Ngozi," he said softly. "What would I do without you?" "You would manage." Chukwudi watched Ngozi move around the kitchen through barely opened eyes, pretending to stare blankly at the wall. He had perfected this act over 3 long years, ever since the accident that had changed everything, though not in the way people believed. The car crash had been real enough. His Range Rover had flipped twice on the 3rd mainland bridge during a rainstorm, killing his fiancée, Obiageli, instantly. When he woke up in the hospital, his eyes were bandaged, his body broken, and his heart shattered into pieces. The doctors said he was lucky to be alive. For 2 months, he truly couldn't see. The trauma to his optic nerves had stolen his vision, and with it, his will to live. His family had mourned for Obiageli, but they also mourned for him, for the successful software engineer who would never code again, never drive again, never live a normal life. Then, one morning, his vision returned as mysteriously as it had left. But Chukwudi said nothing. He kept his eyes closed and continued to pretend because something had shifted during those blind months. He had learned to hear the truth in people's voices, the things they said when they thought he couldn't see their faces. His mother's voice had trembled with shame when she told her friends, "Who will marry him now? A blind man with no future." His younger brother Emeka had whispered to their cousin, "At least now I'll inherit the family business. Poor Chukwudi is finished." His friends from university had stopped visiting after the first month. Even Obiageli's family, who had once welcomed him warmly, had collected her belongings and disappeared from his life, as if he carried a curse. The only person who stayed, who truly cared, was Ngozi. His mother had hired her to help around the house, paying her barely 40,000 naira a month. But Ngozi treated him like a human being, not a burden. She read newspapers to him every morning, described the world out. Chukwudi first noticed it in the small things. The way Ngozi's voice softened when she said his name. How she started preparing his favorite meals without being asked. The gentle touch of her hand that lingered a moment too long when she guided him to his seat. One evening, as she read him the newspaper, he heard her voice crack with emotion at a story about a blind man who had been abandoned by his family. "Are you all right, Ngozi?" he asked, keeping his eyes unfocused. "Yes, sir. I just think it's wicked how people treat others when they're vulnerable. You are a good man, Brother Chukwu. Anyone would be blessed to have you in their life." His heart twisted with guilt and something else, something he hadn't felt since Obiageli died. Could he actually be falling for his housemaid? The truth was he had been. For months now, he had watched her through half-closed eyes. Watched her pray for him every morning before starting work. Watched her chase away relatives who came to beg for money, claiming they needed to protect him from exploitation. Watched her sit beside him during his lowest moments, when grief for Obiageli made him weep like a child. "Ngozi," he said one night, his voice barely a whisper. "Do you think a blind man can ever be truly happy?" She was quiet for a long moment. "I think any man who has love can be happy, sir. Blindness is just one part of who you are, not all of who you are. Would you ever consider marrying someone like me?" The words hung in the air like thunder before rain. Ngozi's breath caught audibly. "Sir, that is not my place to say. But if it were your place, then I would say yes," she whispered, so quietly he almost missed it. "I would marry you tomorrow if you asked me. Not because I pity you, but because I see who you truly are. A kind man, a strong man, a man worth loving." Chukwudi felt tears slip down his cheeks, real tears this time. In 3 years of pretending, no one else had said anything close to this. His own mother had suggested he live with his brother because no woman will want this burden. His friends had stopped inviting him anywhere. Even the church members treated him like a charity case. But Ngozi saw him as a man worth loving. "Then marry me," he said, opening his eyes fully for just a moment to see her shocked face before quickly closing them again. "Ngozi, will you be my wife?" She fell to her knees beside his chair, weeping. "Yes, Brother Chukwu. Yes, I will marry you." What happened next shocked everyone in Lagos. Chukwudi Okonkwo, the blind man no one wanted, announced his engagement to his housemaid. His family was horrified. His mother called it a disgrace. His brother Emeka laughed and said, "At least someone is willing to take care of the burden." But Chukwudi had one. The wedding day arrived with Lagos sunshine streaming through stained glass windows. Ngozi looked radiant in her white dress, tears of joy streaming down her face as she walked down the aisle. She believed she was marrying a blind man, accepting a future of struggle and sacrifice, choosing love over comfort. That's when Chukwudi knew she was real. Everything else had been a test, but this moment was pure truth. The pastor began the ceremony, his voice booming through the decorated hall. Chukwudi's mother sat rigid in the front row, her face a mask of barely concealed disgust. Emeka smirked from his seat, already calculating how to control his helpless brother's life. The 5 women who had rejected Chukwudi's proposal sat scattered through the crowd, whispering behind their hands about how far he had fallen. But then, just as the pastor asked if anyone objected to the union, a woman stood up. Adana Nwosu, Obiageli's younger sister, her face twisted with rage. "This is madness," she shouted. "How can you all sit here and watch this gold-digging maid take advantage of a blind man? She's only after whatever little money he has left." The crowd erupted in murmurs. Some nodded in agreement. Chukwudi's mother stood up as well. "My son doesn't know what he's doing. He can't see who she really is." Ngozi's face crumbled with hurt, but she squeezed Chukwudi's hand tighter, ready to defend their love. That's when Chukwudi decided the time had come. "Actually," he said, his voice cutting through the chaos like a knife, "I can see perfectly well." He reached up and removed his dark glasses with steady hands, opening his eyes fully for the first time in 3 years. He looked directly at his mother, at Emeka, at Adana, at every face in that room. "I've been able to see for almost 3 years now," he continued, his voice strong and clear. "I pretended to be blind because I wanted to know who truly cared about me when I had nothing to offer." The hall exploded. His mother's face went pale. Emeka jumped from his seat, shouting, "That's impossible. You're lying." "Am I?" Chukwudi turned to face his brother directly. "I saw you steal money from my account, Emeka. I watched you forge my signature on documents to access my properties. I heard every cruel word you said about me when you thought I couldn't see." Emeka's face drained of color. Chukwudi turned to his mother. "And you, Mama. You told Auntie Blessing that I was your greatest disappointment, that you wished I had died instead of just going blind." "I heard everything." His mother gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. One by one, Chukwudi called out the people who had betrayed him. The cousin who stole his laptop. The friend who tried to seduce Ngozi. thinking Chukwudi would never know. The church members who collected offerings in his name but kept the money for themselves. But worst of all, he said, turning to Adana, you dare call the only person who loved me unconditionally a gold digger? Ngozi doesn't know this, but I'm worth over 2 billion naira. I built a software company called Chukwudi Solutions that now operates in 15 countries. My partners are sitting in this room right now. 3 Oyobo men in expensive suits stood up from the back row, nodding in confirmation. The crowd gasped again, louder this time. I could have revealed my sight and my wealth at any time, Chukwudi continued. I could have married any of you. He gestured at the 5 women who had rejected him. But you all showed me who you really were when you thought I was worthless. You abandoned me, mocked me, treated me like garbage. He turned to Ngozi, whose face was frozen in shock, tears streaming down her cheeks. But this woman, whom you call a mere maid, stayed with me, loved me, accepted a future of hardship because she saw my heart, not my bank account. She's worth more than all of you combined. The hall fell into stunned silence. Chukwudi took Ngozi's trembling hands. I'm sorry I deceived you, my love. But I had to know if your love was real. And now I know beyond any doubt. Will you still marry me, now that you know the truth? Ngozi's tears fell faster, but a smile broke across her face like sunrise. You foolish, foolish man. She laughed through her sobs. I would have married you blind and broke. Now I'll marry you seeing and rich. The answer is still yes, today and forever. The pastor, recovering from his shock, cleared his throat. Well then, let us continue this very unusual ceremony. As they exchanged vows, Chukwudi's mother tried to approach, suddenly full of apologies and explanations. But Chukwudi held up his hand. Mama, you'll need to earn your way back into my life. And if this story touched your heart, if it made you think about what really matters in life, then please subscribe to our channel for more inspiring African stories. Hit that like button if you believe true love exists, and share this video with friends and family who need to hear this message today. Remember, in life, people will show you who they really are when they think you have nothing left to offer. Choose wisely who you keep close to your heart. Thank you for watching, and until the next story, may you always see clearly, whether your eyes are open or closed.